everybody, welcome to Around the Nation right here, youtube.com/TWTNation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. I got a great show for you guys today. Welcome to Around the Nation as we go, of course, around the nation for some of the best stories and progressive political commentary from around the country and around the internet, of course. So, again, great show today. Hope you guys stick around for the whole full hour. Make sure to share, of course, with your friends. Like and share this video. Sharing is caring. We want to get more, obviously, more viewers, which is always awesome. And, of course, if you're not into the whole YouTube thing, you might also be listening on TuneIn as well over at FI Nation. So, not only do just the YouTube thing, we also do the internet radio thing as well. You know, because, hey, more places, man. The more places we're broadcast on, the better. So, we've got that. Anyway. Before I get into the show, I want to thank the patrons for making this possible. Patreon.com/TYTNation. Thank you guys and gals for funding truly independent progressive media. So if you want to make a donation, maybe a one-time donation, or set up a recurring membership, that is Patreon.com/TYTNation. And of course, you can request things like special videos if you want. If you want me to cover like a certain topic for patrons only, I can do that. So you just got to let me know. Leave me some requests. So anyway, with that out of the way, I do want to go through the breakdown of the story. We've got, of course, Trump versus the press, as usual. Then yesterday, something I didn't get to, but was absolutely ridiculous during the press conference with Benjamin Netanyahu. That is, of course, the Israeli prime minister. And then we have the FBI, the deep state, going to war with Donald Trump. What did they just release? Bunch of stuff on Trump. Stuff we already knew, but we'll get to that in a minute. Or later on in the show, I should say. And then you've got more Republican backlash against the protests that are going on at different state houses and different different town halls that are going on. We've got some of that as well. And then we've got a fun story about the wall, the border wall, the big, beautiful border wall, and how the drug cartels are going to easily defeat it. So, yeah, fun stuff. But first, we do have a little bit of breaking news that I do want to talk about. And it's something from our friends over at WikiLeaks. Apparently, they had just released a huge cache of documents. WikiLeaks released a huge cache of documents relating to the CIA. Now, apparently, according to these documents, the CIA had spied in on the French election. Interesting. So, what were they looking at? I mean, obviously, France is one of our allies. Why would we spy on France? Well, the truth is that governments spy on each other all the time. There's French spies spying on us. We spy on France. We spy on Russia. Russia spies on us. Everybody spies on each other, even so-called friendly countries. That's what we do. I don't like it, but I'm pretty sure nobody likes it. So what happened here? So what were our spies in the CIA looking for? Well, apparently, again, this is reading right from WikiLeaks. Major French political parties, all of them, were targeted by infiltration from the CIA's human and electronic spies in 7 months leading up to France's 2012 presidential election. Now, this, of course, was during President Obama's last term. Now, the revelations are contained within 3 CIA tasking orders published today by WikiLeaks, its context for its forthcoming CIA Vault 7 series. So what they're going to do is that they're basically releasing all this information on what the CIA has been up to. Now, we know the CIA. We know they've always been up to shady shit. That's kind of the reason that we have the CIA, so they can do shady shit. Again, I don't like it. I don't condone what they're doing, but let's be real. That's exactly what they were created for, to spy on other governments. And you know, to even spy on us, which is exactly what they're doing by collecting all of our metadata. So that's what's going on with the CIA. Now, let's read some more into this. Named specifically as targets of the French Socialist Party, the National Front, the Union for a Popular Movement, together with current President Francois Hollande, then President Nicolas Sarkozy, current round one president frontrunner Marie Le Pen, and former presidential candidate Martine Aubry and Dominique Strauss-Kahn. Now, the CIA assessed that President Sarkozy's party was not assured re-election. This is what they found. Specific tasking concerning his party included obtaining the strategic election plans of the Union for a popular movement, schisms or alliances developing in the UMP elite, private UMP reactions to Sarkozy's campaign strategies, discussions with the UMP on any perceived vulnerabilities to maintaining power after the election, etc., etc. So basically, they just looked into all the different parties, and they're like, what's their weaknesses? What's their strength? Who do we think is actually going to win this election? Because the government's going to have to deal with these people, and we need to do the best strategies so that we can come up with the best ways to advance American interests when it comes to France. Again, this is intelligence gathering, right? This is what they're doing. Now, it also had other plans. Specifically, they asked what policies to promote to help boost France's economic growth prospects. That's another thing, looking into what these parties are going to do, and what their opinions on the German model of export-led growth resonate with a U.S. economic espionage order from the same year. So, again, we have the CIA looking into the France's political parties, into their policies, into their weaknesses, strengths, and to see how we can deal with each one of them. Now, it also places weight on obtaining the candidates' attitudes of the EU's economic crisis, centering around their position on the Greek debt crisis, the role of France and Germany in the management of the Greek debt crisis, the vulnerability of the French government and French banks to a Greek default, and specific proposals and recommendations to deal with the Eurozone crisis. Now, the CIA espionage orders published today are classified and restricted to U.S. eyes only due to friends on friends sensibilities. Or sensitivities. Well, no kidding. Look, France, again, I'm pretty sure France already knows that we spy on them. And we know France spies on us. Now, of course, you ask any politician, you're like, no, of course, we would never spy on our friends. Absolutely not. No, we do. Again, it's wrong. I don't like the fact that we do it. But we do it. They do it. Everybody does it. Everybody spies. And that's just, unfortunately, one of the awful realities of what's going on. Now, look, nothing in here is all that surprising to me. As I said, I know that all governments spy on each other in order to get intelligence. Is it for nefarious purposes? Not necessarily. I think it seems more like we're gathering intelligence from these other countries. And that's what we're doing. We're supposed to look into how we're going to deal with these. Again, I don't like the fact that we're doing this, but that's what we're doing. And at least it's good that WikiLeaks is releasing this stuff, so now we know. Like, now you could say that, hey, we are spying on other people. So if other people spy on us, we can't get outright offended and go, how dare you? Well, we do it too. And that's, again, one of the sad, sad realities of living in this world that we live in. So, again, if you want to read that, that's posted, of course, over at WikiLeaks. So it's a very interesting read about what we're looking into when it comes to one of our top allies. Okay. Anyway, I just figured I would share that with you. So let's go to back to our politics, and we will talk about Donald Trump and the press. Now, President Trump is being called out for avoiding the press that he does not like. Now, I go to, of course, evidence of this by going to one of the last press conferences Donald Trump had. Now, after that press conference, you had a CNN White House correspondent, Jim Acosta. Remember, Acosta made a little bit of trouble when he started yelling out questions towards Donald Trump because he wouldn't answer some previous questions. Now, Acosta is going to go on and talk to Wolf Blitzer about this, and basically say, basically call him out for only calling on friendly conservative outlets so that he can be tossed a bunch of softball questions. Now let's take a look at that interview right there.
The two questions that were asked or called upon from the president in this news conference went to the Christian Broadcasting Network, which is obviously owned by Pat Robertson, the televangelist down in Virginia. It's a very conservative broadcasting network, and townhall.com, which is a very conservative news website. And so in the last three news conferences, Wolf, all of the questions to the American news media have been handled by conservative press. And I think, Wolf, there's no other way to describe it, but the fix is in. This White House, this president does not want to answer questions, critical questions, about his associates, his aides' contacts with the Russians during the course of that campaign, just as his national security advisor is being run out of this White House on a rail. And so I think that this only, they may think that this is being cute, or they think this is strategic in terms of trying to shield the president from questions, but those questions can only be shielded for so long, Wolf.
Well, he's right. I mean, the fix is in. They really don't want to answer tough questions. In this case, the questions happen to be about Russia, but any other sort of tough questions on when it comes to policy, Donald Trump, or scandals inside of his administration, he doesn't want to answer. So he calls on, of course, very, very friendly conservative outlets. Now, Business Insider notes that over the last several press conferences, the reporters and commentators whom Trump has called on have not asked him about major controversies hanging over his administration, including, the issue with Michael Flynn, or connections between, possible connections between Russia and the Trump administration. Now, there are a couple of examples of people who are connected to Russia. You had Paul Manafort, Corey Lewandowski, and Roger Stone. So those guys, of course, had their own ties to Russia. And, oh, look, they were all in the Trump campaign. Oh, that's interesting. But anyway, yes, let's not talk about that, though. No. Let's not take questions about that specific issue. Let's take softball questions from different other people, because Russia, can't talk about that. Can't talk about that at all. There are certain people whose eyes and ears glaze over when you talk about this issue. And it's a little frustrating because there is an actual issue here that we need to investigate. We need to look into this to see if whether or not you do have business ties with Russia, and that might compromise your ability to govern in a fair way and deal with them in a way that is for America's best interest and not just Russia's best interest. And that's why it's important to look into it. Again, it deserves a lot of investigation. And there could be some shady shit. We don't know. That's why we should look into it. We shouldn't accept everything that we hear outright coming from, even corporate media, but we should ask questions. We should ask questions of our intelligence agencies, and we should definitely ask questions about our administration. It's about going to the truth. It's about holding people accountable. And that's the whole point. But again, let's not talk about this, says the Trump administration. Instead, let's call on conservative outlets. Now, I got some examples of this. Now, on Wednesday's press conference, Town Hall's Katie Pavlik, conservative commentator, asked Trump to lay out, quote, compromises you have in mind for a potential Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement. Now, you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, dude. How's that a softball? That's actually a tough question. Like, what are you going to do? What kind of compromises are you planning to make? Well, remember, this is Trump's wheelhouse. He loves this stuff. He likes making deals, and look, that's great. I want to make a Mideast peace deal. I am interested to know. So, in my opinion, that's not a bad question. But again, you're ignoring some of the other stuff that is really important when it comes to Michael Flynn. So, as well as some of the other stuff. Now, again, I wanted to make a deal, and I said that I would give him a lot of credit between if he gets a deal between Israel and Palestine. But again, since Trump is a good deal maker and he enjoys this stuff, it is a little bit of a softball question. Now, another question came from the CBN network's David Brody, who alluded to the Trump campaign's connections with Russia, but not attempt to dig further into Trump's knowledge of the communications or the ongoing investigation. Instead, he asked if some of those events with those communications to Russia would hamper the nuclear deal that we have with them. And of course, there's more evidence that he's only choosing conservative media. During a press conference on Monday before Flynn's resignation, Trump selected reporters from the Daily Caller and Sinclair Media, outlets generally considered sympathetic to Trump's presidency. You had Scott Thurman from ABC 7 Sinclair asking about the philosophical differences between Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, while the Daily Caller's Caitlin Collins asked Trump to name the biggest security threat to the United States. Softball. Here you go. Here's what's the biggest security threat to the United States? I hope you say ISIS. Look, maybe it's not fair to call these questions softball. It's more like, I don't know, t-ball. Because my dad played softball, and, you know, I'm a little sympathetic, right? I'm not going to call it soft. These are t-ball questions. Stuff that's more like up his alley. He's not going to ask questions of people that I'm going to, or he's not going to call on people who are going to ask him tough questions about what's going on in his administration. No, he's not going to do that. He's gonna call on the people that are gonna set up these nice tee up these nice little soft, t-ball questions, so that, you know, when he answers it, he can get a pat on the back and a participation trophy. Now, also another example, during his press conference with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, he only took questions from outlets owned by Rupert Murdoch, who, of course, has long-standing personal and financial ties to Donald Trump. I think it's pretty obvious we see a pattern here. This is Donald Trump punishing media outlets that he doesn't agree with, as well as, of course, avoiding tough questions that he has absolutely no answers for. Dodging the media, man. That's all he's doing right now, is dodging media that he does not like. That's a bit of a problem when it comes to the President of the United States. All right. Now, speaking of one of the questions that he did give an answer to, oh boy, take a look at this. This will be a fun segment. All right. Now, President Donald Trump, during a joint news conference on Wednesday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, was asked a question about the rise in anti-Semitic incidences going on over the United States. Now, last year, during the campaign, the Anti-Defamation League, which looks at this, found that more than 800 journalists had suffered anti-Semitic attacks on Twitter alone during the election. And according to CNN, 48 different Jewish community centers in 27 states and one Canadian province had received nearly 60 bomb threats during the month of January alone. So look, there's no question that anti-Semitism has been on the rise. It's kind of a big issue. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I've never understood it. Doesn't seem to make sense. Jews aren't running the world. That's ridiculous. Yes, I criticize Israel for being a super right-wing country. No, I'm not a Jew. No, I'm not a closet Jew. I don't care what religion you are. People who blame Jews or blacks or Muslims or whatever, they're just looking to scapegoat someone else for their problems. So with that all said, we're going to go to Trump's response to this question. Take a look.
The two questions that were asked.
Whoop, wrong video.
Since your election campaign and even after your victory, we've seen a sharp rise in anti-Semitic incident across the United States. And I wonder, what do you say to those among the Jewish community in the States and in Israel and maybe around the world who believe and feel that your administration is playing with xenophobia and maybe racist tones?
Well, I just want to say that we are, very honored by the victory that we had, 306 electoral college votes. We were not supposed to crack 220. You know that, right? There was no way to 221, but then they said there's no way to 270. And there's tremendous enthusiasm out there.
What in the actual fuck? No. You're going to ask me this really important question about the rise of anti-Semitic attacks in America and across the world. And I'm going to tell you about how I did tremendous in the election. Boy, what a huge amount of tremendous enthusiasm, man. I won the Electoral College. Fantastic. Believe me. Oh, they thought I couldn't do it, but I did it. Did you see that? You see that, Ben? That was great. Absolutely. Dude. You're the president of the United States. He's asking about a really important question. And he's like, no, I won bigly. That's what. This is insanity. Come on. Now look, I have the next video where he continues, and he does actually talk about something. Again, it's another terrible, rambly speech. Take a look.
We are going to have peace in this country. We are going to stop crime in this country. We are going to do everything within our power to stop long simmering racism and every other thing that's going on, because a lot of bad things have been taking place over a long period of time. I think one of the reasons I won the election is we have a very, very divided nation, very divided. And hopefully I'll be able to do something about that. And it was something that was very important to me. As far as people, Jewish people, so many friends, a daughter who happens to be here right now, a son-in-law, and 3 beautiful grandchildren. I think that you're going to see a lot different United States of America over the next 3, 4, or 8 years. I think a lot of good things are happening, and you're going to see a lot of love. You're going to see a lot of love. Okay? Thank you.
You're going to see a lot of love. A lot of love. Holy fuck balls. This man is president of the United States. I don't... You know what? Maybe he's actually right. Stay with me for a second. In some sort of weird, ironic way, maybe he's right. There is a lot of love. Now, thanks to Trump being elected, for example, the left is actually now pretty woke as fuck. While we were asleep during the 8 years of Obama, now we are awake and we are pissed. People are getting together, they're working together, they're protesting, they're standing up for women, Mexicans, African Americans, Muslims. You know what? He's brought people together in opposition of it. And also for the love of fellow Americans targeted by his bullshit policies. So I guess, great. Good job. You have brought us together. There is a lot of love. It's just not directed at you. And look, maybe the thought of Trump kickstarting a progressive wave isn't as far-fetched as people might have thought. He's not going to be leading the wave. He's going to be the one that's going to be hit by it. And look, that whole reason, the whole progressive thing, that's why I'm so tough on the Democrats. Right now, the Democratic Party is essentially broken. It has been annihilated. They have an opportunity now to remake the party into one that actually does work for regular people, as well as opposing Trump and the neoliberals. Whether or not they actually go in that direction, or we have to fucking drag them kicking and screaming, we'll have to see. I'm guessing we're going to have to drag them kicking and screaming back to the left. But I am, of course, up to the challenge. But again, this guy, right now, he's our president. He's got no idea what he's talking about. And essentially, he just goes back and starts talking about how I won so bigly. And it was just so tremendous. And he does that in the face of actual important questions. And he's still talking about the election. He's still talking about the primary. I won so, but you didn't think I was going to win, but I won. It's like the guy that wins a board game, your friend or something. Even though Donald Trump's not exactly your friend, but there's a guy you play cards against. And he's like, hey, remember that time 2 months ago where I beat you at poker? Yeah, that was great, wasn't it? Yeah, I got a royal flush, man. It was tremendous. Dude, okay, yeah, whatever, you won. Great. Now, can we stop talking about it and actually focus on doing work? That'd be great. Again, Jesus Christ. And of course, he defaults to, hey, man, my daughter and son-in-law, they're Jewish. Well, saying that, I mean, it doesn't really go back to answer the question of, what are you going to do about anti-Semitism? And the funny thing is that while he's saying all this, you have Steve Bannon. Look, Bannon, his website was Breitbart, kind of a home of the so-called alt-right, or pretty much white nationalists. White nationalists seem to have a problem with, well, everyone who isn't a white Christian, but especially Jews. They seem to have a problem with Jews. Now, the fact that he never really answered that question doesn't necessarily mean Donald Trump agrees with Steve Bannon on that issue. Again, I think Trump, going back to it, he is a transactional person. Basically, what you can do for me, if you do something for me, I can do something for you. You help me with my campaign, I give you a spot on my council. And that's what's going on here. You have David Duke and the white nationalists that ended up supporting Donald Trump, that ended up helping push him to victory in certain places. So now, in response to that, while Donald Trump might not believe in everything that they say, he goes out of his way to not criticize white nationalists. Okay? And look, say what you will about that, but I think Donald Trump's only interest is in winning. It doesn't matter how, he just wants to win. And he uses anything he can to do that. And we saw that during the election. He used anything that he could to win. Anything. Lock her up. Lock her up. Remember that? Oh, that plays really well, but now we don't care. Drain the swamp. Drain the swamp. Oh, we don't care about that now. Of course not. And that's what's going on here. This guy is a transactional person. He doesn't give a fuck about anything other than Donald Trump. And that's what I'm trying to tell people. What I'm trying to say. It's what I'm trying to teach people. Like, if you look into Donald Trump, everything is about, what can you do for me? How can you help me? And that's what we're looking at here. And look, once Donald Trump wins something, he ends up paying you back. And one of them is Steve Bannon. One of the people that he's paid back by giving him a position is Steve Bannon. And of course, you also have to look at Jared Kushner. Now, Jared Kushner, he's a Jew. So you've got a kind of an interesting family dynamic going on there, where Jared Kushner, Jewish, Steve Bannon is a white nationalist. Oh, I'd love to see the family dynamics play out there. But look, they've been using the white supremacist movement as a way to get out into power. In a way, they're useful idiots. And idiots, definitely. And Trump may be an idiot on policy, but there's one thing he knows how to do, and that's sell himself. He knows how to make deals, and he's an expert at reading people. So, he's not book smart, he's not number smart, but when it comes to people, he knows how to use them to his advantage. And I think that's what explains Bannon. I think that's what explains all of this. He's using the white supremacists to stay in power. Because they're easy to manipulate. They're not very smart people. So, that's what we've got going on with the Trump administration. And that's why, of course, he refuses to go and go after the white supremacists. And that's why he refused to answer that question with anything other than a load of just gibberish. Okay. Now, on something that is shows a little racist, let's go to our next story here about the FBI. The FBI has struck back against President Trump by releasing files related to a racial discrimination lawsuit against him and his father from the 1970s. Now, Politico has reported that the FBI recently released 400 pages of records on an investigation the Bureau conducted in the 1970s into alleged racial discrimination in the rental apartments from President Donald Trump's real estate company. So this is interesting because we already knew a few stories about this, but this is more of a big document dump. And of course, there's a reason for this. And we'll get to that. Now, what's in those files? And why release them? Well, the answer to that is the files detail dozens of interviews the Bureau conducted with Trump building tenants, management, and employees seeking indications that minority tenants were basically steered away from different housing complexes. Well, why would they be steered away? Well, it turns out Fred Trump, not exactly a huge fan of minorities. No. Of course not. Now, most of those interviewed actually said that they were not aware of any discrimination. However, some of the records do recount the stories of black rental applicants who said that they were told there were no apartments available, i.e. no vacancy, while white people sent to check on those same apartments were offered leases. Oh, imagine that. So you're a black person, you go and you try to get an apartment that Donald Trump or Fred Trump had managed. No, look, no vacancy. Sorry, man, we ain't got no room for you. Oh, hey, nice white folks. Go ahead. We got a room right for you. We got an apartment. Well, there you go. That would seem to be an example of racial discrimination. Now, the records posted on the FBI's Freedom of Information Act website include a 1974 interview with a former doorman at a Trump building in Brooklyn. Now, this is fascinating. A supervisor told me that if a black person came to 2650 Ocean Parkway and inquired about an apartment for rent, and and this, of course, one of the issues with this is that there are a lot of, it's heavily redacted, so it doesn't actually say the name of that manager, was not there at the time, that I should tell him that the rent was twice as much as it really was, in order that he could not afford the apartment. Again, that seems like a racist policy. Black guy comes up and wants an apartment, you either tell him, well, it's not, we don't have any vacancies, or, oh man, this is really expensive. I don't think you can afford this. Obvious racist policy. And of course it goes to the stereotype, well, that black people, they can't afford that anyway. So we'll hike that price up and make sure that they can't afford it, even if they could afford a regular apartment at a regular price. Now, what would be funny is that I wonder if there were those that had the money and they said, oh, don't worry, I got that. No, I got that money, bruh. Wonder what their faces would look like. I would just want to see that. I would just want to see that. Now, where do these documents come from? Well, many of the accounts of the discrimination appear to have originated with the National Urban League, which relayed the information to the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. Some of those complaints are barely legible, and many of the records are heavily redacted. So again, I'm pointing out some of the problems with this. It would be nice if it weren't so heavily redacted. Nonetheless, you can pick out certain pieces of this and assemble a picture of what this whole thing looked like. And of course, there is other stories and there's other information that has come out from people that have actually filed these lawsuits against the Trump real estate empire. For example, in October 1973, the Civil Rights Division filed a lawsuit against Trump Management Company, Donald Trump and his father, Fred Trump, alleging that African Americans and Puerto Ricans were systematically excluded from the apartments. The Trumps responded in Trump fashion with a $100 million countersuit, accusing the government of defamation. Of course. Great. Donald Trump denied any racial discrimination, but said that managers tried to weed out certain types of tenants. He said, quote, in his 1987 book, what we didn't do was rent to welfare cases, white or black. You know the assumption back in the 1980s, right? The welfare queens started by Reagan. No, we don't want to rent to those welfare queens, We don't want to do that. It seems a little racist again. Just saying. We don't want to rent to those people. And of course, that in itself was called out as BS from people who weren't on welfare, who could afford those apartments but were not allowed to rent anyway. New York Times, of course, during the election ran a story on Maxine Brown. Now, Maxine Brown at the time was a 33-year-old nurse who applied for one of Fred Trump's apartments. Now, she filled out what the rental agent remembers as, quote, a beautiful application. And this is coming from the guy who was there, Stanley Leibowitz, who was a rental agent. Now, when Mr. Leibowitz talked to his boss, Fred Trump, and asked him, hey, what do I do with this application? I mean, it's a black woman, but look at the references. She got the money, no welfare, nothing like that. So what do I do? Well, Fred Trump said, reportedly, take the application, put it in a drawer, and leave it there. Basically saying, hey man, if I could tell you to put it in the circular file, but that might be a bit too much. Just put it in the drawer. Let's forget about it. I don't want to rent to that person. Oh boy, here we go. Now, there's another one. There's a woman named Agnes Bunn. Now, she recalled hearing in early 1970 about a vacant Trump apartment in another part of Queens from a white friend who lived at the same building. So, hey man, we do got a open apartment here, so why don't you move in? Okay, I'll go check it out. Now, she went by, inquired about an apartment, and was told that there were no vacancies. In fact, Ms. Bunn said, the super came out and stood there until I left the property. You are not welcome here. Huh. Not only that, but in 1969, a young black couple, Haywood and Reno Cash, sued after being denied a home in Cincinnati at one of the first projects in which Donald Trump, fresh out of college, played an active role. Mr. Cash was reportedly rejected by the Trump's rental agent, according to court records and notes kept by the Housing Opportunities Made Equal of Cincinnati, which sent in white testers posing as a young couple while Mr. Cash waited in the car. Now, this is fascinating. After the agent, Irving Wolper, offered the testers an apartment, remember, they sent in this white family, these two white people, to go in and see, like, hey, can we get an apartment here? Now, they were using the application of the black couple. Everything looked fine. And, white couple. So they're like, yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll offer you an apartment. Now, after they did that, they brought in Mr. Cash, who was the real applicant. When they did that, Mr. Wolper reportedly grew furious, shoving them out of the office and calling the young female tester, Maggie Durham, a, quote, nigger lover, according to court records. Oh boy. Miss Durham recalled recently, to this day, I have not forgotten the fury in his voice and in his face, adding that she also remembered him calling her, quote, a traitor to the race. So this is the stuff that's in the documents that they were released, and in these in these court filings related to this. Now, in response to Trump's and their company had entered into a consent decree settling the litigation in 1975. The agreement contained no admission of wrongdoing, but required the Trump firm to institute a series of safeguards to make sure apartments were rented without regard to race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. So that's what we have, right? Now, the question is, this did happen in the past, so why release it now? Well, I think it's fairly obvious why they released it. The intelligence agencies are at war with Donald Trump. Now, look, I don't disagree in how they're doing it, but come on, guys. A little late to the party. Why not do this during the primary? Why not do this during the general election? Oh, right, because Hillary Clinton was going to win. Or so everybody thought. Ridiculous, man. It's not like they didn't have these files and all this stuff on Donald Trump lying around. What they did is that they chose not to use these files. If you were so afraid of Donald Trump, why didn't you bring out this intelligence? Why? Why keep it in your back pocket until now? Come on. No, instead, Comey told a bullshit lie that they were not reopening the investigation into Hillary's emails. Which, again, that's a lie because they actually weren't opening an investigation. And look, don't get me wrong. The emails didn't decide the election. Comey didn't decide the election. I'm not saying that at all. Okay? The emails, WikiLeaks didn't decide this election. None of that decided the election. You know what decided the election? Hillary Clinton. She beat herself. Okay? She was a bad candidate, but, and look, she was a terrible candidate. She didn't talk to people in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. She was she was very untrustworthy. All that stuff. 100% correct. But seriously, none of this, any of the emails, nothing. That's not what brought her down. So I want to keep making that clear. so that I don't get taken out of context somewhere. But when it comes to Trump, when they knew all this stuff, and maybe this wouldn't have hurt him either, but it would have been nice if they had come out. Okay? If you keep it under wraps until now, it seems a little fucking hypocritical to me. It is clear that the intelligence community is now out to destroy Trump. And I know that. The CIA, the FBI, all that, they do have a vested interest in defeating Trump. I get that. Because they want somebody who in there who's establishment friendly. And look, Trump is establishment friendly, but he's very hard to control unless you are good at manipulating him, and which Steve Bannon absolutely is. But again, the intelligence community, they want him gone. Now, whatever happens going forward with that, they continue to release more of these documents, etc., etc. Look, whatever happens, as I said, we don't know what's going to go on. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm thinking that that we're going to see the ramifications for a long, long time going into the future. I mean, I don't know if we've ever had this happen before, but the intelligence community is trying to take down a sitting president. Now, I don't like Trump, and I certainly don't like what's been revealed here about him. But again, we're in uncharted territory, guys. This is unprecedented. And we're seeing an active administration going after its own intelligence agencies, and the intelligence agencies going after him. And they're fighting amongst each other. This is not the way government is supposed to work. This is deeply dysfunctional and deeply unprecedented. And I don't know where we're going to go from here. And I know that whatever happens, the full effects of this are not going to be known until well into the future. And that is a little bit scary. Uncharted territory, man. Oi. All right. So let's go to politicians here. All right. Republican Representative Dana Rohrabacher is now accusing his own constituents of engaging in political thuggery. Now, let me give you some context on this. Representative Rohrabacher had been recently targeted by progressive groups. And basically what they've been doing is they've been coming to his office and protesting and leaving Valentine's cards. Now, these Valentine cards are basically people saying, why don't we, and they come up with little fancy rhymes and stuff like that. But basically what they're asking is, let's have a town hall. Let's go and discuss the issues of the day. And of course, Rohrabacher's like, what kind of thugs want to meet with their representatives to air their grievances? No, not, you know what? Thugs. They're all thugs. Paid thugs. I'll get to that in a minute, but let me show you an example of one of the cards. One of the protesters has actually been leaving Representative Rohrabacher. Are you ready for this? Are you ready? Dana just met with Marie Le Pen in France. When will he meet with the constituents in Costa Mesa? Oh my God. Such thuggish behavior. So unreasonable demands. Give me a break. Now, of course, if you ask Rohrabacher, he will say that, no, they're thugs. They're Soros-funded thugs. So ignore them. In fact, earlier this week, he bases that whole thug thing off an incident involving a 2-year-old girl. Now, during one of these protests, they were all outside of his office, and what happened is that this young girl slid a Valentine under the door on Tuesday. One of the staffers opened it, hit her in the head, knocking her down. Now, look, there's a lot of fault, there's a lot of blame going on around this, right? Some of the protesters saying, hey, look, you should have seen that she was outside. You do have cameras in there. And, of course, his staff says, no, you shouldn't be there in the first place because you're causing problems. Again, I think that they are just doing their constitutional right of being able to protest the government. That is their First Amendment right to gather and protest peacefully. Now, of course, Rohrbacher's office says, no, what happened is that, yes, one of our staffers did hit the door, but it was their fault. It was their fault. But also one of the protesters made one of my staffers fall down and hit her head. And she had to go to the hospital. Thugs. They're thugs. Oh, boy. Now, in a video of the immediate aftermath of this thing, the girl could be here crying, of course, as visiting constituents apologized. And one of them had helped Rohrbacher's staffer, who was knocked down by that door, basically helped her back up. Hey, I'm sorry, man. We don't want anybody to get hurt. And that's what the protesters were saying. We didn't want anybody to get hurt. This wasn't a violent protest. This was a Valentine, and it was a mix-up. Okay. So the door's closed, and the group leaves. Now, when the mother of the young girl told a local reporter, I don't think anybody from either side was trying to hurt anybody. And I agree with that. I don't see any reason, there's no reason for any sort of violence, for knocking people over, and it's counterproductive. So, of course, neither side is interested in doing that. But, of course, Rohrbacher's office is going to use that as an excuse. Now, interestingly enough, just to show you how dangerous this crowd is, and, that Rohrbacher says is dangerous, but actually isn't, I'm going to show you a picture of what the crowd looks like after they're outside of Rohrbacher's office. If you can take a look at this. So dangerous looking. Most of that crowd is old ladies. Come on, man. You're getting scared of old ladies? Little old ladies. And a 2-year-old. Fascinating. But in his press release, Rohrbacher says this incident was malicious and says that these activists are an unruly mob of thugs. He said, quote, I am outraged beyond words that protesters who mobbed my Huntington Beach office violently knocked down my faithful district director, Kathleen Staunton, causing her to be hospitalized. Though the protesters think themselves as idealists, they engage in a political thuggery, pure and simple. These people do not want, as they've claimed, to hold a town hall meeting with me. These are unruly activists on whom the lessons of civility and democratic participation have been lost. These holier-than-thou obstructionists will be held responsible for this outrageous assault. They are exposing themselves for what they are, enemies of American self-government and democracy. Now, again, let me show you a picture of these ladies. That's your unruly mob. Those are the people that are enemies of American self-government and democracy. Look, man, democracy. Now, you say that word, but I don't think you know what that actually means. Look, this is another example of protests working. People get together, they do peaceful protest, and the politicians look at it and go, oh, shit. Oh, my God. No, oh, my God. We got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. Look, what they're doing is that they're lying about the protesters because they're running scared. They're not thugs. They're your voters. Well, maybe not your specific voters, but they're your constituents, okay? In fact, one protester told reporters that, quote, I'm here because I'm not feeling heard. And I can tell you that a lot of people are not feeling heard. And again, that's why all they're doing is that they're asking for a town hall so that they can talk with their politician and they can express themselves. That is the First Amendment. That is being able to petition your government. No, he doesn't want to do them. No. Instead, the guy's like, they're not my constituents. They're not mine. They're thugs. If they were, I'd have to listen to them and not my donors. Can't have that. Don't want to do that. In fact, in local media 2 weeks ago, his staff characterized the visitors as, quote, purposely disruptive and out of district. Not my constituents, man. Not my problem. Again, not true. Look, this is a Republican narrative, right? This is what they're using. They're saying, and I'm going to give you some examples of this. They're all saying that these protesters, They're not actual real protesters. They're paid to be protesters. This is an AstroTurf movement funded by big Democratic donors. Well, let me tell you, I did a similar story where Democrats, safe Democrats, people like Joe Manchin, are also running scared because they're afraid their protests are going to come to their town halls. Oh, man, I don't want that. I don't want that. If it's a Democratic effort, they're doing it wrong. Because, again, the Democrats are also afraid of these protests. But, again, they're saying, no, all these protests are fake. Everybody loves Republican rule. Everybody loves Donald Trump. It's just, those leftists are getting paid. The Women's March was fake. And all these people, they're just thugs for hire. Look, hey, man, I know people are looking for work out there, but Jesus Christ. No. That's the whole paid thing. Bullshit. There's no proof of it. Now, I've got more from Republicans. In Tennessee, Representative John Duncan said he wouldn't hold town halls for fear of, quote, extremists, kooks, and radicals. In Utah, Representative Jason Chaffetz dismissed a particularly raucous town hall as, quote, more of a paid attempt to bully and intimidate. In Illinois, Representative Peter Roskam snuck out the back door to avoid protesters. Oh, no, back door. I got to get out that back door. We got a back door? But I'm just going to slip out here. See you guys later. That's what's going on here. He's sneaking out the back door. And a spokesman characterized the protesters as, quote, national groups as opposed to local constituents. Again, they're not my protesters. They're not my constituents, or else I'd actually have to listen to them. And we don't want to do that. In fact, Chaffetz says that paid protesters are hounding him. However, reporters haven't been able to find a single example of a paid protester. Why? Because they don't exist. At least not on our side. Earlier this week also, Representative Darrell Issa said, quote, of the Democrats, these are the people who have brought in anarchists to destroy this town, of whom 240 some were arrested with the support of George Soros and the Democrat left. This is not a cooperative environment. And of course, he said that to the Boston Herald Radio. George Soros, man. Always comes back. He's like the boogeyman. Boo! George Soros. George Soros. Coming for you. Ridiculous. There's no evidence. And look, he wants to say, well, either they're paid protesters or they're paid radicals who are there to do violent extremism. Really? Well, there's no evidence that most protesters are violent either. Look, there has been instances of violence, of course, in some places, in some protests. Look, we don't deny that at all. Were they part of us? Were they? I don't know. By definition, though, progressives don't use violence. If you use violence, you're not actually a progressive. You're not actually a liberal because, you know what? We can achieve our goals without being violent, without wrecking storefronts. Besides, what kind of liberal breaks a window to a Starbucks? I thought we're all supposed to be, Starbucks loving, lotto swilling, I don't know. Seriously. And look, to point to recent protests as well, you had the Women's March, which was 100% peaceful. There was no arrests. That's how to peacefully protest right there. So I don't believe, and this is backed up by evidence. I don't believe that there is just this massive paid violent protest going on. It's complete bullshit. And look, when they have to go and make shit up like this, it really shows how scared these politicians are. And again, I mentioned that the Democrats are scared, which I think is fantastic. All of our politicians should be scared of people power. They should be scared of us. And look, it's high time that we take the government back to the people and away from the politicians and the corporations that fund them. As long as we can do these peaceful protests, man, I am 100% in favor. Let's keep going. Let's keep making our politicians afraid of us instead of us being afraid of them. Okay. I have one more story for you guys. we're going to talk about the border wall, but first, I'm going to say goodbye to FYI Nation. So, goodbye, FYI Nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Right here, same time. And let's see. That is done. So now, again, we've got one more story for you. Let's talk about the Trump wall and ways to get over the Trump wall. Now, Donald Trump has this big plan to build a giant border wall with Mexico. Now, of course, as a lot of people have pointed out, there seems to be a few issues with this wall idea. For example, right now, more Mexicans are leaving the United States than coming in. So what would happen is that you build a wall, you're going to prevent Mexicans from leaving. Again, more Mexicans are leaving than coming into the United States. So you're going to trap them in here. That's a dumb idea. Not only that, but number two, the terrain that you want to build a wall on, incredibly difficult to build. Because it's not a flat area. It's got mountains, it's got valleys, all sorts of different obstacles along the way. That's why our fence kind of sucks. That's why you can't build a big wall. That's why you can't build a big fence. It doesn't work. Not only that, but it's also incredibly expensive because of those very issues, costing billions of dollars. The original cost estimated at $25 billion. That is a lowball estimate. You add in everything else, enforcement, training, materials, for example, his promise to use American steel. Well, then suddenly you're looking at $40-50 billion. That is insane. Now, also, airplanes. They exist. Why cross through a border wall when you could just fly over it? Not only that, but you can use boats to get around it. You just go to another piece of exposed shoreline. And of course, when you use a medieval solution, like building a giant wall, to solve a certain problem, in this case immigration, sometimes you can counter that problem using another medieval solution. In this case, catapults. I kid you not. According to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials, agents recently discovered what appeared to be a catapult designed to launch bundles of drugs from from Mexico to Arizona. It was a marijuana catapult. Amazing. Now, Customs and Border Protection agents, according to the International Business Times, were patrolling the Douglas Port of Entry. It is a border inspection station in the small Arizona town of Douglas. Now, they noticed several people on the Mexican side of the border fence running in the opposite direction. Now, upon further inspection, since they looked into, oh, that looks a little sketchy, why are they running away? Oh, that's weird. The team discovered 2 bundles of marijuana weighing a combined total of 47 pounds and a catapult system attached to the south side of the border fence. A catapult. Oops. Hey, look, and if the cartels can use siege weaponry to catapult drugs over the fence, they could probably do it over a wall. Now, what's next, man? A dope-slinging trebuchet? Or how about a wall-busting ballista? You don't think the cartels are that creative? They probably are. In fact, 2012, Border Patrol agents discovered a cannon used to launch 85 pounds of marijuana hidden in soup cans over the border into San Luis, Arizona. The drugs made it 500 feet over the fence thanks to a carbon dioxide tank used to power the drug cannon. Now look, Donald Trump thinks that the wall is going to stop that. It's going to stop the drugs. So the big, beautiful wall is going to stop the drugs from getting in. Does he not understand how physics works? How you can lob drugs over a wall or a fence? They'll figure out a way. And look, you really want to stop drugs, right? You want to stop drugs from getting in the United States? I got a solution for you. In fact, we know the solution. We all know the solution. You want to defeat the cartels? We know the solution to that too. It's the same one. Legalize drugs. Decriminalize them. No, you can't do that. No, of course you can't. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Yeah, actually it has. I mean, you had Portugal that decriminalized drugs. And you have 2 states that legalize marijuana. Now, let me give you some numbers of how many drugs were seized in 2012, between 2012 and 2015. Now, agents along California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas seized more than 5,900 pounds of cocaine and more than 2.2 million pounds of marijuana in 2012. Now, according to Customs and Borders Protection, that amount, however, has been steadily declining. In 2015, about 1.5 million pounds of drugs were seized along the southwest border. That is a big reduction in the amount of drugs. You know what? You can thank Colorado and Washington for that drop. Again, they legalized recreational marijuana so that people no longer had to buy it from the cartels. Instead, they could buy it from your local government-regulated dispensaries. And you also don't have to worry about your marijuana being laced with something or funding the cartels. You get your pot, you go, you use it, and then you eat a bag of chips. All while knowing that you have denied the cartel money. It's a win-win for everyone. Except for them, they lose, of course. When you legalize and regulate drugs, you end up taking money away from the hands of the drug cartels and actually putting some in the hands of the government through taxation. And you know what they can do with that? They can actually fund treatment centers for people who get addicted to those drugs. So they can help them get off the drugs and into something different. Now, why don't we do this? Well, we don't because there are powerful lobbies in Washington that don't want to lose big business. You got to follow the money. For example, you had Andrew Cuomo recently saying, and he's the governor of New York, saying that marijuana is still a gateway drug. You know why I say that? Because he took $900 million. I'm sorry, $900,000, almost $1 million from alcohol companies. Alcohol companies have a vested interest in stopping the legalization and decriminalization of marijuana. Not only that, but you have the pharmaceutical industry, which is not at all interested in marijuana. The paper industry, when it comes to the cultivation of hemp, for example, hemp paper, all these different companies, all these different industries that actually are agreeing with the cartels, keep drugs illegal, they say, because they can all make more money. And that's what it's all about. If you really want to stop drugs, you want to stop addiction, you don't build a fucking wall. What you do is, ironically, you do what Ronald Reagan did. You tear down the wall. You tear down the walls and you put an end to the ridiculous and expensive drug war. You decriminalize drugs, you put up treatment centers, and the problem takes care of itself. It works in other places. It'll work here. And that's it. All right. That's all I've got for you today. Now, I know you guys do want me to cover things. I can't always catch everything. So what I want you to do is that you can follow me on Twitter at TYTNation, and you can send me stories. If you're on the Twitter or if you're on Facebook, facebook.com/TYTNation, you can post stories that I might have missed. And I'll take a look at those, and if enough people want me to cover it, I will talk about it. So I'm more than happy to do that. So you can, of course, tweet me at TYTNation or like my page on Facebook. I check both regularly. So there's a way to get a hold of me for story suggestions. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for watching, for going around the nation with me today. Definitely appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. And I know we talk about Trump a lot, but he's the fucking president. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? We'll be back tomorrow, of course, Friday show. I think we're going to have a fun Friday show as well. And we'll take some calls tomorrow as well. So keep that in mind. So make sure to have your questions. And again, we'll have fun stories. We'll take calls. We'll have a good show. Looking forward to it tomorrow. That is at 3 p.m. Eastern right here, TYT Nation. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel. If you haven't and you've been watching, what are you doing? You get like notifications whenever we go live. And notifications when we put up any of our videos. So if you missed anything throughout the week, you can go and check our videos and you can see the clips that we put up. So I highly recommend subscribing if you haven't already. And of course, you can donate patreon.com/TYTNation to help keep us independent and corporate sponsored free. I don't like sponsorships. I don't want to do sponsorships. I don't think anybody wants me to do a sponsorship because I cannot do ads for the life of me. So, I mean, I'm just terrible at it. But anyway, and I don't want to do it. So patreon.com/TYTNation help keep me independent. All right, everybody. Again, thank you so much for joining me. Remember, I love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.